So access to education, what does it entail in general, and what are some of the variables influencing it?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it entails lots of things, right? So it entails looking at the sort of primary and secondary schooling opportunities for folks, and that's going to look different in different countries. In the United States, we fund schools based on property taxes. And so folks who live in more affluent areas have more resource schools. Folks who live in less affluent areas have less resource schools. And that aligns with things like social class, obviously, but also things like race and ethnicity, rural, urban, suburban, all of those different components. And um, so not everybody, to begin with, not everybody starts right on equal or equitable educational footing, and that actually goes all the way back to prenatal care, right? Like because brain development starts in the womb. And so folks who have different access to prenatal care means brain development is different. Folks who have books in their home or access to a local library have different opportunities for learning than folks who don't, right? So all of those sorts of beginning components actually impact college access, right? So where you went to high school is going to have an impact on your admissions application, particularly in the United States. I don't know as much globally about what that looks like, but so I think all of those components about, who you were born to, where you were born, what schools do you have access to, all of that impacts your ability to access college. And then the layers that are added to that are things around information and knowledge, right? So I did some research on what the literature, the term is college knowledge, but it's essentially all the information you need to know to be able to access an institution, right? And that includes everything from the financial components. In the US, financial aid, there is availability through the federal government. There's also private financial aid. There are scholarships and grants and other kinds of things of that nature. And so even just the financial part itself, right, is a huge barrier to many people, including myself, right? So I knew that if I didn't be weren't there was no money for me, right? My parents didn't have a college fund, there was no extra dollars, like none of that stuff. So if I was going to be able to access college, I had to figure out how to pay for it. Luckily for me, I was eligible for a state program in the state of Louisiana that gave me tuition, like free tuition, basically. And then my family qualified for federal aid in the United States for folks who live in poverty. And so I was able to get some grant dollars and some work study dollars, which allowed me to work on campus, like automatically have a job on campus and those sorts of things. And so but even figuring out the paperwork right now, the United States is redoing its FAFSA program, and it's a real mess. And so it's backing up people's opportunity to think about different options about where they want to go to college. It's impacting institutions and their deadlines. They're having to push back deadlines, and so it's really confusing, especially when they change it. But it's always confusing. And so not only that, but then figuring out all the components, around things like rankings. Do they matter? Do they not matter? I have my own opinions on that. But also thinking about what do I want to study, right? Like being from a rural area and a first-gen college student from a working class background, I thought people went to college for three reasons: teacher, doctor, lawyer, right? I didn't think about sociology or philosophy or psychology or more of the sort of liberal arts things. I didn't think about engineering even, right? Because nobody I knew was an engineer. So thinking about access to information about what you can study, access to information about money and aid and how you can finance higher education, information about how to compare schools, or do you even have the option to compare schools, or do you have to go to the school that's closest to you?